Right, hello everybody. Welcome to another edition of Drive Time, and I'm delighted to say a good friend has rejoined the show. Of course, Charlie Martin is with us. Charlie, how are you this afternoon?
I'm very well, thanks, Ian. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Enjoying the cold but sunny weather.
Yeah, cold. Very, very, very good point. Although it does look like I've got a bit of a tan, hasn't I? But it's only because I've got this massive light here, look, shining on my face. So, yeah, I don't have a tan at all. Now, Charlie, it's great to see you again. It's been, I did see you very briefly at Autosport, but of course you were very, very busy indeed. So, really, the first question is for anybody who has been kind of living under a rock for the last few years. Just give us a little bit of background information about yourself.
So I'm a professional racing driver and an LGBTQ plus activist. So I've been racing now, I guess, coming up for about 16 years, and currently racing in endurance, which has been, where I want to be really. My ambition is to race at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. To become the first LGBT, well, to become the first ever transgender driver in history to do that and make LGBTQ plus history. And so, yeah, a big part of what I do in motorsport and outside of it really is using my profile and platform to try and create more awareness and more acceptance. And yeah, that's kind of the main thrust of what I do day to day. Really, it's either racing or trying to create more good, more acceptance in the world.
Yeah, you certainly do a great job of that as well, Charlie. Let's go back 16 years. Where did the love affair with motorsport start?
I wanted to be a fighter pilot when I was really young. Top Gun was my favourite film, and that really
I
morphed
like that.
into a love of motorsports around the age of about 10 or 11. Through one of my friends whose dad raced, going away with him at the weekends and just being in the paddock and kind of experiencing the whole atmosphere that you find at race tracks, and especially at club racing as well, where yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very welcoming environment. You know, you're free to roam around and do what you want, and I just really found that exciting. It really struck a chord with me, and it's something that I wanted to do from a young age. But I don't have any family history or anything like that in terms of motorsport, so it was quite a difficult one figuring out how to get into the sport myself. But through a bit of determination and hard work, I've sort of found my way in, and never thought I'd get to the point that I'm at now, where I'm racing professionally. But yeah, it's not always been easy, but it's certainly been worth it to get to this point.
Well, we'll touch on that very shortly in a minute because I've obviously seen you in the Pragas, so you handle some pretty mean machine out there. Let's go back to the paddock very quickly. How accepting has everybody been? Is it just people just get on with it, don't they?
Yeah, I think to a large extent. I mean, my personal experience of transitioning when I was competing in club racing was I wouldn't say it was the worst. I wouldn't say it was the best. I'd say it's probably quite representative of what a lot of LGBTQ plus people experience within motorsport, insofar as there was just a real absence of awareness, and
Yeah.
therefore, I think when you're stepping into some kind of environment like that, that you've known previously to be very inclusive and welcoming, but also quite homogenous in terms of it's probably quite, you know, it's quite male, sort of
Yeah.
heteronormative environment, which isn't a criticism, it's just an observation. When you suddenly are someone that, that presents or is quite different to the rest of the people there, it's very easy to feel like a bit of an outsider. And I think, it was hard going for me as a transgender woman stepping back into that environment. Um, yeah, I won't lie. It was to such an extent that I gave up for a year, and I didn't think I'd go back to the sport. But I think what has been really heartwarming through that whole process is just the people that did support me, the friends that did stand by me and made a real effort. Um, just to be a good friend, just to be like, hey, doesn't matter what you're going through. I'm your mate. I'm here. I
Yeah.
want to see you racing. It's great having you around. Nothing's going to change. just people saying very straightforward things like that actually made me feel like, yeah, I've got a future in the sport. And gradually, over a year or so, I think more and more people um, became educated themselves just by speaking to me and by learning from my own experience. And that's, I think, a big part of how we can create change in our own little environments. Of course, it shouldn't always come down to the one individual who's there trying to empower that change. It should be a collective responsibility of allies as well to educate themselves and to really just try and create more empathy. But nonetheless, that was my experience, and I think that we're seeing now that motorsport has really embraced this, this wider discussion around inclusion and how do we include, people from all different kinds of backgrounds and lived experiences, and just basically, just it's just about educating ourselves a bit more and knowing that, if you see someone who's transgender or someone who's from whatever community, that you don't feel like, oh, I'm scared of talking to them because I'm going to say the wrong thing or I don't want to insult them, and and that's really what I was up against, and it's just like breaking down those barriers, really, quite simply.
I imagine it was very different 16 years ago to how it is now, because you spoke about education. You play a big role in this as well, Charlie. We shouldn't ignore that either. You play a huge role in educating people about this. From my side of things, looking at it from the outside in, I suppose, it seems like, and it's not just motorsport, this is all across football and all across other sports as well. It seems the education is being pushed out there. How do you think it's going? Are you pleased with the level of education that's been pushed out there, what we're seeing, the advertising that we're seeing, the commitment we see in Formula One? The We Racers One. It's not just a racism thing, it's to do with everything. It's LGBT everything, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, motorsport has so many different layers and levels to it, and it's difficult to comment on everything at the same time. I think what I would say is that Motorsport UK have done a fantastic job in terms of, the governing body of British motorsport. They've really embraced the whole, the whole challenge, I think, which is a challenge, by forming an EDI committee that encompasses people from all different minority communities, whether that's the BAME community, people who have disabilities, who have difficulty getting into motorsport, obviously the LGBTQ plus community, of which I'm on the subcommittee for. I'm really doing a lot of work internally, which I think is the first step for any organisation, to make sure that you're educating people within your organisation, you're doing things that are best practice, you're rewriting all your forms to be inclusive, and so on and so on. And then starting to do things externally, like this year was the first year that Motorsport UK was part of the Rainbow Laces activation, a massive campaign across all of sport that's coming up for its 10th anniversary this year, founded by Stonewall, with people like Visa and Barclays and big names like that involved. So I think things like that, is really, really, really encouraging to see. Beyond that, you start looking at other countries, America or the FIA, and I'm not so aware of what's happening, but I have seen some really, cool, rather impactful things happening. In the States, there's been some great initiatives to encourage more women into motorsport. But in terms of, say, like specifically LGBTQ plus inclusion, as far as I'm aware, Motorsport UK has set the bar pretty high, really, and I think that hopefully other countries will look at that as a model for how they can move things forward.
There's always a minority, isn't there? But I'd like to think most people sort of. My personal opinion is I like, with respect, I don't really care, just so long as you're happy. Do you know what I mean? And to me, you're Charlie, who's just a bloody good race driver and always nice to talk to. That's kind of it. Charlie, let's come back to let's lighten the mood a little bit, shall we? And talk about your racing career, shall we? And we talk about the big dream. Le Mans, that is the dream. How close are we? Where are we with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I'd say things are moving in a great direction. I mean, last year was my most successful year that I've had in terms of career-wise in terms of results. Um, Racing in America for the first time, new car, new team, new circuits, new everything. Racing in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo, um, incredible car, something like 630 horsepower.
Oh, I don't know how you do it.
Not much
I would
aero. So
crash on a straight. What I
yeah,
would do.
we're hitting like nearly 100 nearly 170 odd miles an hour down the straights. Yeah, we were this close to winning North American Lamborghini Cup. I think we had something like 3 or 4 points coming into the final race. So
Oh,
unfortunately, we picked up a puncture, but we finished second, and it was a really good season. Um, and looking to continue driving with my teammate Jason Keats,
yeah.
CEO of Awesome, who sponsored our Lamborghini. And yeah, we're looking to have another season together. We're just putting that together at the moment. So things are going in a great direction. In terms of giving you a date about when is Le Mans going to happen, it's so, as you know yourself, it's very difficult to be
Of course, yeah.
specific about these kinds of things because it depends on various opportunities and doors opening. But I'd say certainly in terms of the cars I've been racing the last few years, the results I've been getting, proving myself as a driver doesn't seem to be the problem. It's really just about having the backing to get to Le Mans because it's to just rock up there and buy a seat is a hell of a lot of money, and that's not an option that I can just ask my rich uncle to write me a check for or something like that. So yeah, you have to hustle and work hard to find ways to make that happen, and that's what I've been doing, and that's what I'm continuing to do. But I'm sure that I feel like in my bones it's going to happen one way or another, but it doesn't look like it's going to be this year. So.
Do you know? I don't want to put pressure on you, Charlie, but when you just know something's going to happen. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I just know. I know you are going to race in Le Mans. I know it doesn't mean anything because it's just words. It doesn't actually mean. But I just know it's going to happen. You're too driven. You're too motivated to do it. Let's talk about creating opportunity then, because this drive time's a little bit different to some of the others. I put certain questions to people. I did send you a list of questions, but I wanted to make this a little bit more specific about you because of what you're trying to achieve with all of this. So one of the questions I had when we talk about opportunity, we talk about endurance racing, we talk about sort of Formula One, we talk about Indy cars. Was it always just sort of endurance racing for you, or did you look at other opportunities and think, actually, that could be a route I could go down? Or has it always just been this one way? Because we talk about sponsorship, we talk about generating sponsorship. Would it have been easier to generate sponsorship in a different formula, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, I actually wanted to get into rally driving. That was the form of motorsport that really caught my interest when I was 11 years old, 12 years old. And I used to follow the WRC. I used to love watching it. You know, back in the era when I'm trying to think when it would have been, like late 90s, early noughties.
Oh yeah.
And there used to be some really good coverage. I've not been able to follow it quite. So I think I don't know what happened with the coverage. I kind of lost my way with it.
It's gone a bit as well. Not what it was.
Yeah, which is a shame. I mean, I suppose things have changed. We since then, like the internet's in streaming and social media has kind of taken over, so you can catch stuff. But I think to actually sit down and just watch, the whole of like Rally GB or Rally Corsica or whatever, it's harder. But yeah, rally. I really loved the idea of getting into it, but it just seemed quite, as a form of motorsport to get into without any background in competing.
Yeah.
It's just more complicated, and so it was actually hill climb where I started, and first of all in the UK, and then off competing in France and Europe in French and FA European Championship. So yeah, that was pretty cool. Endurance racing, I mean, it's funny really because apart from drag racing, hill climbing is probably about the shortest form of motorsport you can do in terms of the time you actually spend driving the car. So to go from that to endurance racing where, it's 24 hours, it really is like two bookends of the spectrum. But endurance racing caught my eye when I went to Le Mans in 2001, 2002, 2003. 3 years spent we were racing, and Yeah, I was just like, wow, this is incredible. I mean, I
Yeah.
think back then there were like a quarter of a million people. They predicted this year for Le
Wow.
Mans it's going to be something like, they reckon 300,000 people, which is easy, well known. I mean, for a motorsport event,
Yeah, that's
that's
insane.
like as many people as you get, really. Um, and yeah, I think this is a lot of things I love about it. The pushing yourself to the absolute limit for that level of time. I think just
Yeah.
having to race for hours and hours and hours in the car back to back, and the fact that also it's like it's the whole team for the whole race. It's not like where you get in a car for a sprint race and then it's over to the driver. It's the whole team calling strategy, pit stops, repairing the car, whatever has to happen. It's everybody working together from start to finish, and I think that adds like a real other element of teamwork to it, perhaps.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I mean, I've done a bit of sprint racing as well, and I'd happily go back and have a crack at hill climbing again. But there's only so much time and money that I have to put into a season, so it's endurance has been away for quite a few years now, really.
It's getting there, Charlie. It's getting there. Look, I know you're very, very busy indeed, so I won't keep you much longer. Just quickly, where can we see you this year? Are we going to see you stateside again?
Well, I've not kind of said yet. We were planning to be back in the States. At the moment, we're still kind of in discussion with people, really. So my lips kind of sealed until we've sort of crossed the T's and dotted the I's, so to speak. But one way or another, be back in a GT car, and looks like we'll be racing with Jason Keats again. And I'm hoping in the next few weeks we'll be able to reveal exactly what that is. But I'm afraid I've got to be a bit of a tease and I can't actually tell you what.
Don't worry, don't worry about that. What I will say to everybody though is go do check out Charlie Martin on social media, because I imagine that's where the news is going to break, right?
Absolutely. If you want to follow me on any social media at Go Charlie, you'll find me.
Fantastic, Charlie. Thanks so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Best of luck this season. Hopefully, I will see you at a track, and hopefully, I'll see you at Le Mans in the not too distant future as well.
Thanks, Chris.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Ian. It was a
Thanks,
pleasure.
Charlie. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye.